Hi, I'm Cheryl Rogers Barnett, and I want to thank you for joining me in this episode of Along the Trail. My special guest today is my longtime friend, Robert Fuller.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. It's a pleasure to be here and to be with you. It's been too long since we've been together, and I'm very pleased to be on your new show, Along the Trail.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, the first time I met you was at a celebrity thing where we were doing polaroids for international orphans.
Oh, I remember very well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Hal Baylor.
Hal Baylor, good old Hal, yeah.
He had organized that. My little girls had such a crush on you.
I remember those days. We did that quite often. That was a fun thing to do, absolutely. Hal was great, yeah.
That turned out to be a really nice event, and I met some wonderful people at that. It was great.
We had a lot of cowboys around in those days, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, now, that would have been in like '62. So which of your series were you working on?
I was doing Laramie at that time.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And Hal was guested on many of them with me, so we were good friends, yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching it since we've been in Texas. I've been watching you every morning,
the
2
Western
episodes.
Channel, yeah, Laramie, Wagon Train, and then Emergency is playing on Grit TV someplace. So, I got 3 shows on the air right now.
Well, I think this is so great, though. I mean, my folks have been gone for a long time, but they have certainly been off the air as far as the Roy Rogers Show, and good heavens, the movies were ages ago. But now, thanks to all these new TV channels, young kids can get to see the cowboys again.
Absolutely. I just watched Roy on a movie the other day on the Western Channel. Yeah, it was kind of fun to see it, yeah.
Now, you did 3 hit series, like back to back.
Almost, yes. I was very fortunate. I started Laramie in 1959, ran until 63, I believe. And then right after that, I walked into Wagon Train. I was very fortunate to work with the great John McIntyre,
Yes.
who was a dear friend and who had done several Laramies with me. And did that until, I believe, 66 or something like that. And then I did quite a few motion pictures. And then Jack Webb got a hold of me and got me out of the saddle and into a stethoscope for the great series Emergency, which I got to do with Julie London and Bobby Troop and Randy Mantooth and Kevin Tighe, and had a wonderful time on that show, which ran for about 8 years.
Wow. I mean, that's an actor's dream to be able to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Knock on wood, believe me. It's very lucky. I've had a great career.
So what was it like working with Julie? I thought she was so gorgeous, and I, of course, had her records and all, but she was really good in that.
Julie was excellent, and people ask me what it was like doing Emergency, and my stock answer is, what do you think it's like getting up in the morning and going to work with Julie London? My God, what a sweetheart. She and Bobby, we had so much fun together. I adored that woman. And Jack Webb, and they were, of course, both married, and, and then Bobby was married to Julie at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a big family affair. We had a lot of fun together. After work, we'd either wind up at Julie and Bobby's house or Jack's house, and Bobby played the piano, and Julie would sing, and we'd stay there till 4 in the morning, and then be back on the set at 7:30, and ready to work.
Yeah.
But we had fun.
Camera is not real forgiving, though. I mean, more so now, I think, than it was back then. If you didn't get rest, that was tough.
Well, we have a big joke. My cameraman, Frank Thackeray, who was doing Emergency. If you remember, and I'm sure most of the folks that watch this will remember, back in the very, very early days of silent films, and also in the 30s, some of the great cameramen would use gauze over the camera to lighten up the wrinkles or whatever on a woman's face. Well, when I would come on a set in the morning, Frank would say, "Get the burlap out."
Oh, my. Too much fun.
Oh, yeah.
With all of the super things that you were involved in, did you have a favorite crew?
Oh, I had the same crew on Laramie for the 4.5 years that we did it. Absolutely same. My cameraman was Ray Ranahan, who helped invent Technicolor and was the Technicolor consultant on Going with the Wind.
Oh my gosh.
So I really learned about camera from Ray, and he was such a gentleman and a great, great cameraman. No, we had the best crew ever. I had my special effects man. You know, I did all my action work and stunts and all that kind of stuff. I think most people know that. But I worked very closely with a special effects guy, and his name was Frank Brindell, and he was fabulous. He could blow things up, shoot the squibs close to me, and body hits. We actually started that early in the early '60s, and he won the Oscar for Earthquake.
Wow.
So, you know, I had such a fabulous crew. I knew their wives, I knew their children. Smitty and I just adored our crew. We had a great time with them. And two old great directors who your dad worked with many times, Les Sealander and Joe Kane.
Oh.
And, you know, I know Joe.
Yeah, Dad called Joe Kane Papa.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah, he was, this was old-time directors that knew how to direct Westerns. They were tough old cops, they really were. And Joe smoked a big cigar and he wore a fedora hat. And if he got upset, he'd actually take that fedora off, throw it on the ground, and jump up and down on it. I mean, I swear, it was unbelievable. I'd have to go over and put my arm around him and say, now, come on, Uncle Joe, settle down. We'll get this shot. Don't worry about it. And he'd say, well, okay, all right. He'd put the hat on and we'd shoot. I love those guys.
Now, my dad really tried to talk Republic into doing television. He thought they were the perfect studio to go into it, since they did everything on the cheap. They hated doing any take more than once. They would do so many setups in a day, and he thought they would just be perfect, but he could never talk the old man Yates into doing that. He wanted to be Paramount. You know?
Into doing television, you mean?
Yeah, they just, in the early days, they would
in the
not
early days,
do
yeah,
television.
because I actually got my start at Old Republic in television.
Yeah.
Mickey Spillane and M Squad and shows like that Old Republic was doing. In fact, I was doing Cimarron City at Republic with George when they asked me to do Laramie. I loved Old Republic. That was old-time good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Dad was there for a long time. That's where he became Roy Rogers.
Absolutely. Pat Buttram, Pat's a dear friend. And, all the old great cowboys came from there. Rod Cameron.
Yeah. Now, you came from New York out to Hollywood.
No, that's not right.
Okay.
My parents got divorced when I was very young, probably 6 or 7, something like that. And my mother moved to Florida. We moved to Florida. I was pretty much raised in Florida. And then she remarried, and my stepdad, who I call my father, my real father, as far as I'm concerned, he was the greatest guy in the world, taught me everything I know. And we moved to Chicago for a couple of years, and then back to Florida, and then to Key West.
Wow.
And I went to high school in Key West. I went to high school. I got to the 9th grade and got tired of school, and I quit and went to work. Worked in a pool hall, racking balls for 10 cents a rack, and then I was a bellhop at a big hotel down in Key West, and then my parents decided to move to Hollywood in early 1950. And because they were both dancers. My parents were dancers. My mother was a professional dancer, and she got my dad to become a dancer along with her. And they moved to Hollywood. He got in the picture business immediately as a dancer, chorus dancer in the background. And he probably worked in every musical that was ever made from 1950 till he retired in the 80s.
Wow.
And he was a great dancer.
Well, and you danced some.
Well, I did. I knew how to dance because of my parents. And,
sure.
But I had several different jobs. I was an usher downtown Los Angeles, and then I got a job. Believe it or not, I was the doorman at Grumman's Chinese Theater, wearing a Chinese outfit for 35 cents an hour, taking the tickets. And
Sure.
you know, it was great. I went to the day that I quit school. My dad said to me, he said, if you're going to quit school, he said, there's nothing I can do about it. I was having problems in school. And, I could fight too much and get in trouble. I hated school. And he said, if you're going to quit school, you're going to go to work. I went to work the next day, and I hadn't been out of work a day in my life, thanks to him. You know?
Yeah.
I wish a lot of kids would pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But I ran into a bunch of guys that worked extra in the picture business. And, they became friends, and I'd let them in the theater free. And they kept saying, why don't you get in the picture business with us? We make $12.05 a day, and we get overtime and meal penalties, and you can make $30 a day as an extra, you know? So I went down and tried out for an extra and got in the Screen Extras Guild. So I started working as an extra for quite a while, and I was making $12.05 a day, you know, sometimes $20, $30. But my dad, as a dancer, was making $250 a week on these musicals, and when you get in a musical in those days, if there's 2 or 3 dance numbers, you're working for 3 months.
Oh,
solid,
yeah.
You know, with 3-4 weeks rehearsal, a week to shoot the dance number. So my dad said, "What? You know how to dance? Go on one of these dance interviews, you know." So I said, "Oh, I'll try it." So I went on one. The picture was called "I Love Melvin" with Debbie Reynolds and Donald O'Connor. And dadgummit if I didn't get hired to be in one of the acrobatic numbers that they said it'll be later on in the movie, but you're good for it, you know, because I could do some acrobatic stuff. But anyway, I got home that night, and the phone rang, and they said, report to MGM tomorrow morning, dance rehearsal. So I danced in every number in that show, had a special number with Debbie, and made a ton of money.
That's wonderful.
And went on to do several other movies. I danced with Sid Charisse. I worked in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with Marilyn Monroe. I was one of the dancers in that. Oh, yeah, no, that was kind of fun. But I did that for quite a while. And then, of course, the Korean War was on at that time. And I just turned 19 and I got drafted.
Of course.
So I went in the service and went to Korea, spent 17 months over there. And when I came back, I really thought to myself, this is not good. I can't be a dancer or an extra the rest of my life. You know, I really don't have much of an education, but I should try to get a decent job where I could amount to something someday. Yeah. And but my best friend at that time was Chuck Courtney, who played Dan Reed on the Lone Ranger television series.
Oh, yes.
And you know Chuck, of course, for years. And we were really, really good buddies. And Chuck said, no, you're not. You're not going to do that. You're going to stay in the business because while you've been gone, we started studying with a new teacher in town, and he is fantastic. His name is Richard Boone. This is way before Have Gun Will Travel.
Yeah.
And he said, you're going to go to class and meet Dick Boone. I've told him all about you, and I think you got a chance to be an actor. You know. So I went to class. Dick had me get up and do an improvisation, and I did it with a young girl in class. And that night we all wound up at a bar with Dick. And Dick said, you know, he said, I liked what you did. You ought to study with me. I think you got a chance to be an actor. And I was astounded. I said, how do you know that? How could you tell that? And he said, trust me, I know. Study with me. Well, I did. I started studying in 55 with him. In 56, he sent me back to the neighborhood playhouse to study with Sandy Meisner, where he had graduated from. And I came back and immediately went to work, did my first movie with Chuck, co-starred with him in a movie called Teenage Thunder. We signed a contract to do 2 movies. The second one was The Brain from Planet Eros, a science fiction movie. And that's where it started. And I got an agent and started working smaller parts, and just got very lucky and got 52 years later.
Yeah, Dad always said he'd rather be lucky than good, but it helped if you were both.
And, it helps, yes, it does.
Yes. And I think he sort of lived his life like that. But, I mean, it sounds, for you, the transition was so nice and smooth.
It really was. It's surprising.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of kids go out to Hollywood.
Every month.
Yes.
Believe me, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And getting out of the Army in 1955 and in late 1956, co-starring in a movie is unbelievable.
Well, the camera loves you, Bob, so that helps.
I love the camera. I learned camera from Ray, and you know, actors, if they're smart, will learn camera.
Yeah, Mom and Dad said that it was Gabby, George Hayes, that trained them both because he liked them. And so they said they learned more from him than anybody else that they worked with.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Thinking back, watching the movies and watching Gabby, you know.
Oh, he was such an
pro.
Oh, he
was fabulous.
Yeah.
But he knew camera, sure he did. His timing was like this.
Yeah. Did some great stuff.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite director?
Well, actually, I had the two that I talked about, Les Sealander and Joe Kane, are two of the guys that I really respected and liked working for. And I had one director that I really did like. His name was Joe Pebney. I think Joe has passed away. He was a former actor. Oh. But I really like working with directors that were actors. The connection is good.
Yes.
And when they can turn the light on for you a little easier. But he was fun to work with. But I think Les Sealander and Joe Kane, my two old billy goats, and that's what they were. They were just tougher than nails. But and to put up with me and Smitty.
You two came across so great on camera.
Oh, we had a great relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We made a deal when we first started. We knew each other barely before the series started. But we said, we don't want to be like all these other actors in town that hate each other and they fight and one wants more money than the other and this and that. And, you know, that's all in the papers. It's in the Confidential magazine, a trade, whatever, about all. You've seen it. You've been there. You know what I'm talking about. So Smitty and I said, let's not try to outdo each other and ask for more money. Let's never ask for a raise. Let's ask for a bonus.
Very smart.
And he said,
yeah.
Good idea. So at the end of every season, we'd go up to Patrick Kelly, head of the studio, head of talent, my mentor, really, and we'd get in his office and sit down and we'd explain to him that we've been good all year. We don't blow our lines. We haven't asked for any money, but I think a bonus would be kind of nice, wouldn't it, Patrick? I called him King, and he called me Star. We had a great relationship. And he'd say, go home, there'll be a check in the mail. And sure enough, we'd get a really nice bonus. And
wow, you guys are really sharp. I never heard of anybody doing that.
Well, we were.
Wow.
And we had a good show. Laramie was a really well done, well directed, photographed, good Western. Lots of locations, shot in your country, St. George, Utah, Kanab, lots of locations, Lone Pine. And took it where it belonged.
Well, for heaven's sakes, could have been shot right here on your gorgeous ranch. This is beautiful, Doc.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a dream come true. When I retired in 2004, Jennifer still works, of course. In fact, when we moved here, she was doing JAG and had to travel back and forth.
Wonderful.
Back and forth to Los Angeles, so she still works. And, but I wanted to get out of the business. I think I told you I got tired of living in the same town with Sean Penn and Rosie O'Donnell, and several others, by the way. And I did, and we looked at several ranches. I wanted a ranch that had where I could have horses, where there'd be water so I could fish, have ponds. I have two beautiful ponds back there.
Gorgeous.
I have one with largemouth bass in it and one with catfish. So I can go fishing in the morning and take my pal Tony Gill fishing with me, who runs my website, who's over there laughing at us right now, my good buddy. And boy, when we drove up that road and saw this ranch, the two of us just fell in love with it and said, this is it.
It's so beautiful.
I know. And to leave Los Angeles with the traffic and the leaf blowers and some people to be here in paradise like this is a dream. It really is. We're really enjoying it.
Oh, you guys, you're really lucky. I mean, you've had such a great career and just done so many things, but you deserve to be where you are and living the life that you are. And I'm so glad that you've got your fish ponds. That's great.
Oh, I know. It's fun.
You said catfish. be there all the time. I love catfish.
You love catfish? Oh, I do too. Catfish are good. No, yeah, Lucky. Lucky is right. My
Tell
God,
us about your website.
My website?
Yeah.
I have, well, actually it's Tony Gill who has put my website together in my Fandom. I think I have about 2,000 in the Fandom right now.
Great.
And whenever I do film festivals, I did 4 this year already. Probably 150 to 200 and show up for it, and we have a great time.
Yeah.
But Tony's the boss. He runs the Fandom, and he runs my website. I have one of the best websites in the world. I can't believe the work he's put into it. Really, it is fantastic. I'm very, very fortunate to have him as a friend. But it's fun. But being lucky, yeah, sure. I got to do some fun motion pictures. I got to work with Yul Brynner. I did the Return of the Magnificent Seven.
Oh, of course.
I did the Steve McQueen part and spent 3-4 months in Spain with Yul, having the time of my life.
How was he to work with?
Oh, he was the king. He was fabulous.
I loved him on screen and never had a chance to meet him.
He was magnificent. He was the king, though.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear
There's
that.
no doubt about it. When the first time we met, and it's no secret that he and Steve McQueen did not get along on the original Magnificent Seven. You may have heard the rumors about it, but they're both exceptional actors, but they're 2 different types of actors. Yul is a straightforward, act believably under imaginary circumstances. McQueen is more method.
Yes.
And I guess he fiddled around a little bit too much with his hat and this and that and whatever. But anyway, they didn't get along. Yeah. And there was terrible animosity on the set during the movie. And I heard about it. Everybody heard about it in Hollywood. And then when I got cast to play the Steve McQueen part, in the Return of the Seven, I got very worried, thinking that, my gosh, when I get over there and meet Yul, it's because I'm playing Vin, the same part as McQueen, is this going to carry over? Am I going to have a problem with him? Because I heard he could be a tough guy if he wanted to be, Yeah. And so anyway, I get to Spain, and the first morning on the set, the assistant director comes to me and says, "Have you met Mr. Brynner yet?" And I said, No, I haven't. He said, "Okay, well, let's go say hi to him." So we get out in makeup and walk across this terrace area where his dressing room is way over there. It has a big trailer, and he's sitting the door is open, and he's sitting at the makeup table getting made up. And this mirror is right there. And we take this long walk to the trailer, and I see Yul looking at me in the mirror as we walk up with the assistant. Walk right up to the trailer. The assistant knocks on the trailer and says, "Mr. Brynner, this is Robert Fuller, who's playing the part of Vin." About then, my heart started to go like this. And he doesn't turn around. He's just looking at me in the mirror, and I'm looking at him. But he won't turn back. Dead silence. And I thought, uh-oh. I mean, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, nothing. And then he says, "Do you drink?" And I thought, do I drink? Don't I drink? Does he drink? Does anybody drink? And it's going through my mind. And then I thought, God, how would it be? Honesty's the best policy. And I said, "Yeah, I drink." Dead silence. And I said, oh, God, I shouldn't have said that. I mean, another 20, 30 seconds. And then he looks at me and he says, "Do you play poker?" And I cracked a smile. I said, "Yeah, I play poker." And he turned around and grabbed me. He says, "Come on in, Pally." Grabbed me by the hand, threw me down on the floor in there, and I swear, we went to work about 3 hours later, having killed a half a bottle of Johnny Walker Black between the two of us.
Holy cow.
And I had the best time of my life with him. He was quite a guy to work with.
Oh, I love it when I hear nice things about people that I really like on screen.
He was dynamite.
I know that I said that you've been really lucky, but you are so believable on screen. I mean, I've seen you in so many different parts over the years, and you always are so very believable. And
you're very kind. Thank you, dear.
No, I'm not being kind.
Well,
it's just that the camera sees when you're not real.
I owe it to Dick Boone. Believe me, that's the way Dick taught. He taught everybody individually, When I started studying with him, I thought I was Jimmy Dean. Every young actor did in those days, you know. And I had my finger stuck in my ear or whatever, you know, trying to act. And he broke me to that real quick.
Yes.
You know, I just did 2 or 3 scenes like that, and they couldn't even understand what I'm saying. You know, I was doing the method junk.
Yep.
And he finally turned to me one day and he said, "Your next scene is Hamlet." I couldn't spell Hamlet. You know, I didn't know Shakespeare for anything, and I actually, tears came to my eyes. I said, "You can't do that to me. I can't play that prince. You know, I can't play Hamlet." And he said, "Either do it or get out of class." And he said, "I'm going to give you Peggy Weber, who was a fabulous, fabulous actress, and who was also a Shakespearean actress too, to play your mother, and come back and do it." Well, we worked on it, and I went out and I got the book. I could hardly read it. So my dad said, "Why don't we get the album of Laurence Olivier and listen to it?"
Good for your dad.
His Hamlet.
Yeah.
So that turned the light on when I started listening to Olivier do it. And then I read the book again, and then it started to make sense to me. And then my dad said, "Now you can't go in there and slouch around like Jimmy Dean playing this." He said, "So wear your cowboy boots. That'll make you stand taller." You know, so I said, "That's a good idea." We did a few of those things, and I did that scene. He had me do it twice, and then he said, "Your next one is Romeo and Juliet," and I did it. And he taught me to act believably under imaginary circumstances, as if it was happening to you. That's the way he worked, and that's the way I work, and it worked.
Oh, I mean, it certainly has worked. And as I say, I've never seen you in anything that I didn't think you were real in that. But Boone, the anthology series that he had,
oh yeah,
I loved that. And I always thought that there should be way more of that on TV.
Wouldn't that have been nice? Yeah.
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 But just not enough actors, I don't think, that
I really don't. I don't
do it.
know. It lasted for a while, but not long enough.
Yeah.
But Dick was one of those rare people that could pick out things from people and make them work. And he had a good group of people working with him all the time.
Yes, he did.
And he was a marvelous actor. I loved watching him work.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of the people from his company became teachers as well. I think Ford Rainey did for a while.
I think so too.
And I know Bob Blake did for a while.
Yeah, Bobby Blake, and quite a few of them. Yeah.
So, did you ever think about doing that?
About directing?
Or you were just too busy?
You know, I had it in my contract to direct on Emergency. But for the first time in my life, when I was doing Laramie, we would work 11 months out of the year, Wagon Train too. I mean, we did 32 episodes a season. I'd have 30 days off, and the studio would send you on tour to publicize the show. So you had absolutely no time whatsoever to yourself. But when I started on Emergency, we were only doing 22 episodes a season. So we would have 4 or 5 months off. But I went fishing instead. I really did. I go back to Florida and fish Lake Okeechobee or go shooting with some friends, just do stuff like that.
Yeah.
I never ever did it, but I would have been a good director, I think. I
think you would too.
Yeah, but no, acting was enough for me.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you stuck with it for so long and that we are able to enjoy again your super performances and the shows that you worked in.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for being with me on this episode of Along the Trail. And for all you out there, if you like it, please tell your friends about it. And if you like it even better, subscribe. We would love to have you join us. Happy trails.
This has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. It was great fun.